Great to have your company on Sky News across Australia. I'm Peter Gleeson. Now, police have been given powers to fine and even send those who flout self-isolation laws to jail. Queensland Police Union boss Ian Levers joins me now to explain the penalties. Now, Ian, how does this actually work? Because a lot of people are dirty on the fact that these people are going out and flouting the law. They are flouting, they're basically being irresponsible. How do we keep them? How do we make sure they do the right thing?
Well, we've got to do the best we can, Peter, and police are in a very difficult situation because we are getting how serious it is, and I think the world is starting to see, and we're starting to see in Australia, people know this is fair income and lives are at risk. So we've got various forms of legislation and we'll be operating under the Health Act, but police have they'll have no discretion or they won't use it. If you're committing these offences, they will issue an infringement notice, or if you need to be arrested and put before the courts, we will do that because our lives are at risk at this point in time, and we have never, not in the lifetime of a generation, seen a time like this where the whole world is at risk. This is fair income and we cannot afford to muck around. Self-isolation is an absolute must because this is about, it's about public safety, and some people have said, well, I'm young or I'm not in the main category as a risk, but however, you may pass it on to someone else, and you can't put other people's lives at risk. This is about looking after the entire community. As we're going to see, this is going to not only hurt us on the health issue, we could lose many people, and we're trying to stop that and flatten the curve in Queensland and Australia, but also there are other detriments to the community as well, which are going to be around for a long, long time.
Ian, can people who recklessly endanger the lives of others, people with coronavirus, and don't self-isolate, can they be jailed?
Yeah, what it can be, if under the Criminal Code in Queensland, section 317(1)(b), if you knowingly and you have the coronavirus and try or attempt to infect someone else, that is a criminal offence and it can be life imprisonment. That is very serious, and that was brought in as a result of HIV when people knowingly had an illness and they deliberately tried to give it to someone else. There is no difference to that than what it is the coronavirus. But what we need to look at too is if you've got to self-isolate, you commit an offence if you don't do that. The governments are not doing this because it's something that's being dreamt up. It is fair income and we need to protect people. And I think if you have to self-isolate and you breach that, you should be fined heavily. If you have the coronavirus, that is very serious as well. And you must obey the law because this is about protecting everyone. And as we know, the mortality rate, let's hope it's not like we're seeing in other countries, and we lose a lot of people, but we're seeing younger people it's killing as well. So there are stiff penalties, and rightly so. We've got penalties under the Health Act, and we won't hesitate to enforce that because if we can flatten the curve and stop this, we can save lives. What I think we need to go, Peter, is also that if you have to self-isolate or you have the coronavirus, well, obviously you've got to self-isolate there. If someone comes to your home, whether it's a government official, you're having food delivered, or a tradesperson or anyone else comes, I think the onus should be on you to tell people coming to your house that you are in isolation or you have the coronavirus. And I think we're going to see a lot of legislation going through the parliaments very quickly. We need to create an offence so the onus is upon you to declare that you are either in isolation or you have the coronavirus. I think that's only fair. I think it's a bit unfair if a tradesperson or someone's delivering food or any other person comes to your house and you have to self-isolate or you've got the virus, you could knowingly pass it on to someone else. I think you've got to self-declare. I think it makes sense, and I think the public would support that.
Last weekend, Ian, we saw a couple of big house parties on the Gold Coast. Police were pretty unimpressed. Does police have the power to basically disband groups of 10 or more?
It becomes very complex in the different parts of legislation. If we're going to cancel part, it becomes very difficult, and we're seeing just getting into this different sides of legislation. But what it is we will do our best to disband it. But that is just acts of stupidity, and it should never ever occur. And I hope Australians are starting to wake up to themselves that that's not on. We've heard the Prime Minister come out and say we shouldn't even have other family over or friends for a barbecue. He's not saying that, nor are all the other premiers, and they're all from different persuasions. They're saying this because this matter is very serious. Sadly, it's too late when police turn up to try and fix these problems. We need people to really step up and do their job. There are things where we can separate, we can issue fines in various circumstances, but it becomes very complex, but we'll be doing all we possibly can. But we just need to let police and other public officials go about doing their jobs and not have to attend to acts of stupidity like we've seen over the last week or two.
How's morale?
Sorry, Peter, I missed that.
How's morale within the force at the moment?
Well, it's difficult right across the state because it's an unknown, and we're sort of in the preparation stage, and it's really got serious. And what police are doing, it's very difficult. There are a lot of police who are, they're doing it tough, but they know that we have to be on the front line to protect the community. It is stressful for police where they have family members who are suffering from ailments. It's stressful knowing that you cannot see some of your relatives because you may put them at risk. I've spoken with police who've got young children who've got illnesses and they just don't want to bring the illness home. So police are quite stressed, and and we're in uncharted territory at the moment, not knowing what we're dealing with. But I'll say this, one thing that they're doing that makes us all proud is we're really stepping up to the mark, and we're doing our job to keep the public safe. And the union's working very closely with the Commissioner, Katarina Carroll, to ensure we can provide our police with all the protective equipment which we need. And that's the problem, Peter, is the government's trying to get the appropriate PPE into Australia for not only police but our health workers, to protect them while they're doing their job. That is one of the biggest fears of police, is we need the PPE to be able to do our job because it's an unknown and we don't know. So police are stressed, but we'll really step up and do our job because we know how important it is. And we've never seen a time like this in our lives, and I'd say going back nearly 100 years where we've been in an environment like this where there is so much risk and uncertainty.
Sure. All right, Ian Levers, thanks for joining us on Sky News Across Australia. Really appreciate your time.